Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Monday, October 13th Personnel Committee meeting. Thank you. I'm Christine Batisky, Personnel Committee Chairperson, and our cabinet member is Mrs. Tara Mossman. We have one public comment today, but I'll start by reading the policy first. According to Policy 903, public comment on matters of concern, official action, or deliberation is limited to 3 minutes. Should be directed to the entire school board following the announcement of your name and municipality. Under this policy, the presiding officer has the authority to warn or stop a public commenter when violation of this policy occurs. Okay, and the first one is Thomas Trauger.
Time hasn't started. All right. Good evening, Thomas Trauger, East Rock Hill Township. As we head into the next budget cycle, I want to speak about the importance of sound financial management and long-term planning for our district. Last year, the board approved an increase of nearly 4%. While I recognize that taxes had not been raised for several years before that, those choices come with trade-offs. When we delay maintenance or put off key investments, the costs eventually catch up, and that can hit taxpayers harder down the road. Now, to be clear, I'm not suggesting we raise taxes. I'm suggesting we plan better, that we think ahead so we don't find ourselves forced into tough positions later. Smart, responsible planning today prevents larger burdens tomorrow. As we enter budget season, I urge the current majority to take a thoughtful, long-term approach, one that focuses on fiscal discipline, transparency, and accountability. Let's prioritize what truly matters, keeping our schools warm, safe, and dry, supporting strong academics, and ensuring every dollar we spend is used wisely. As Mr. Cormick said, this board needs foresight, something that's been lacking in past leadership. Penridge families and taxpayers deserve steady, responsible leadership that plans for tomorrow without overburdening them today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to our first agenda item, which is Bloom Board. Ms. Mossman?
Good evening. Tonight I would like to introduce to you Lauren Patterson. Lauren is from Bloom Board, and she's here to talk to us tonight about their Grow Your Own Teachers program.
Good evening. Good evening. Better? So thank you for having me this evening. I'm really excited to be here and didn't have to travel too far, about a half an hour from here. I was in the Springfield Township School District for a long, long time and left to start working with Bloom Board, and we help you build teacher pipeline. This is meaningful work. The hope is that we can have a conversation this evening about the different pathways and that we can talk with Ms. Mossman and the rest of the committee about which pathway to start. So I'm going to give you the big picture of all of the different pathways that could exist, but know that we're not moving forward with all of these things all at the same time, okay? So for those of you who have been paying attention to the news and things, you know that Pennsylvania teacher candidates are declining. We're not only seeing a decrease in the number of candidates, we're also seeing a decrease in the quality of candidates. And so that is something that different districts have felt this pinch sooner rather than later. I think that you guys have been really lucky that it hasn't hit you in the way that it's hit some of other places. But we do know, and we have lots and lots of data at this point, that the interest is declining. So if you look at the number of folks that are actually staying in education degrees in college is decreasing. Those are traditional college placements. And we're also seeing an increase in the amount of cost of tuition around the state. And so what happens is when we rely on our traditional placements to provide enough students for us to eventually become teachers, right? if they don't have those teachers available, we end up fighting with each other. And so I'm sure Dr. Barrios and Ms. Mossman can attest to this. It used to be that we would hire folks and we would be saying, we're about to make a 30-year decision, right? We better be sure. And now we're willing to offer people 5 years of experience on a salary table. And that wasn't the case before. Before it was, go ahead out and find a step 1 bachelor's. And so I think that this speaks too about what you were just commenting about, right? If we start to think about how we can create our own pipeline and not just rely on the colleges to provide that for us, it's going to be to our advantage. And so if you start to think about why are we doing this now? Well, we're starting to feel the pinch, right? And so we're starting to see folks that are doing things like signing bonuses, or they're getting, I saw a billboard the other day trying to lure folks in to become teachers. And so specifically, if you look at Penn Ridge data, from 2020 to 21, you were looking at about 5 emergency permits per year. In 23, 24, which is the latest data that's available, you were looking at 20. So there is a dramatic increase that you're experiencing. And I would tell you, if you compare yourself to the areas around you, you're actually in better shape than most. But that also means that at any point, it could affect the next community over. And so what we can do is now create a sustainable talent pipeline. We can offer growth opportunities. So you can not only try to bring folks into the pipeline that live in your local community, but also think about your current high school students and how to keep them in Penn Ridge. You can offer this as a professional educational benefit for current employees. If you already have support staff that have an associate's degree or have a bachelor's degree, you can offer this as a benefit to employment, and then you can really become an employer of choice. I'm going to skip this video, but certainly it will be in the presentation if anyone wants to watch the advertisement beforehand. So what makes this so different? Well, most of us learned in classrooms that on the left here, right? So somebody was at the front telling us a whole bunch of things. We were supposed to regurgitate that information back. And so if you're in a traditional college environment, they're teaching folks to teach anywhere because they don't know where you'll end up, right? So if you're at a traditional school, you could end up teaching at Penn Ridge, or you could be teaching in Philly, or you could be teaching in Pittsburgh. They don't know. So it's a lot of, this is what it might be like, right? The way that Bloom Board supports all of our educational prep providers and our higher ed partners is it's all embedded in your system. And so I'm sure that many of you have talked about induction and what happens when you bring on a new employee. Some of that has to do with teaching them the Penn Ridge way, because they learned what it might be, and then you have to unlearn what it might be to learn the Penn Ridge way. And that's really hard. And so what we do is all portfolio based. It's all based on their mastery of content. So if they're working on a curriculum, they're working in your curriculum. They're looking at your scope and sequence. They're looking at your lesson plan template to build all of their artifacts to master the concepts, okay? There it goes. So we have multiple pathways that are available, okay? And as I said, not all at once. I never recommend all at once. But the first pathway is for high school students. So I know that Bucks County Community College is right across the street, and you have high school students that are earning college credits while they're in high school. If we have students who are able to attain an associate's degree in high school, that's block credit, they can be hired back immediately upon graduation to become paras, never at the high school, only at the elementary school, okay? They can be paras, they can do the degree completion and become full-fledged teachers before they're 20 and have almost no student loan debt. Those are kids that will never leave the Penn Ridge system because they've been in it the entire time. Okay. The second pathway is the associate's degree pathway that we just talked about. Some folks are earning their associate's degree right now at Bucks County Community College to be able to go over there and say, hey, come on over here. You don't need to be an education major. You were a psych major. What are you going to do with that associate's degree in psychology? Probably would make a great special ed teacher. Come on over here and let's see if we can get you into a para role and move you into the next step. The next step is the bachelor's degree completion. So this takes you from an associate's degree to a bachelor's degree. We can do that in 2 years with our university partner. In Pennsylvania, it's Point Park University is our educational prep provider. They earn a degree from Point Park. There's no such thing as a Bloom Board degree, okay? And they can earn that in elementary or in special education. The beauty of this is it's all embedded into their learning in your district. So they are not doing nights, weekends, writing a bunch of papers. They are doing actual artifacts of evidence based on mastery of concept, okay? The last thing that we do is a post-bachelor's. This is for folks who have a bachelor's degree in another area, or for folks who are looking for a special ed teaching certificate. You need additional coursework for that. So this is through our partnership with Central Susquehanna Intermediate Unit. In Pennsylvania, you can be an intermediate unit and an ed prep provider. And so we're able to do that in special ed or in elementary as well. We can do that for both support staff that you currently have, as well as for folks that are in a long-term sub position that are the teacher of record. They can actually do an intern cert, which is a shorter version of that program. So this is always the question that we get. So Tara, do you want to talk about this?
Sure. Would you like to share what your cost is
I
first?
sure can. So the different programs have different costs, and that is because they are attached to different educational prep providers. And so we have some say over that, but we don't have all the say over that. So Teach Start is a program that we do with community college partners. So we have 3 community college partners in Pennsylvania. Bucks County is not one of them yet, but since we already have 3 of the 15, we certainly are happy to have a conversation with them. These are 12 credits that are done through our platform. They are decided through a partnership with the community college. Typically, they are intro to education, intro to ed psych, early reading, things of that nature, which are really helpful for folks that are just learning how to be paras. So they're really purposeful, and also for folks that need an associate's degree, it's what grounds them, because encouraging grown-ups to go back and take, college algebra and science lab is not really their favorite thing to do. And so this is something that we find sustains them in that program. That's $250 per credit hour, so $3,000 for somebody to get that full program. In some cases, we also were able to overlap the Teach Start with the highly qualified competencies for paraeducators, so that's something that we could think about too. The bachelor's degree completion program, which is 60 credits, it's $568 per credit. We use a braided funding formula for that. So part of it is an employee contribution offset by what they qualify for in terms of FAFSA, financial aid. There's a district contribution, which we can talk about. And then the final part is we use local workforce funding and or any sort of apprenticeship or other grants that might become available. The next one that you're going to see is the post-bac program, and that really overlaps with the intern. It's really just the number of credits. That's all through our partnership with Central Susquehanna Intermediate Unit. $444 per credit hour. Again, all of the programs are baked into your system, and we help you. We would work very closely with Ms. Mossman and her entire team. So we monitor folks down to the click. We know whether or not they're performing, whether or not they need extra support. We give them all sorts of things. We do praxis prep, tutoring 240, you name it, we do it. And so typically it starts with a survey to kind of figure out what pathway makes sense, and that's done in conjunction with the conversation around tuition and what's available in terms of building a program.
And so the district currently offers tuition reimbursement to our staff members. We budget about $125,000 per year for tuition reimbursement, and over the last 3 years, we use around $94,000 each year towards tuition reimbursement. We have 112 employees in PEA that utilize the tuition reimbursement. We have 4 in PESPA, and we have 7 that are administrators that currently utilize tuition reimbursement. So this is something that we can look at when we're talking about the cost of this program versus what we currently budget for tuition reimbursement and how that would play a part in this.
So we're already providing those funds for the current, so that part is spent, so this is an option to spend it this way?
Yes, so we could transition, we can keep this option for staff who would like the tuition reimbursement, but we can also offer this program that would align with what we are paying right now.
Most often what we find districts do is they take some of those dollars that are dog-eared for tuition reimbursement, and they move them proactively. One of the things that we have to do is we have to remove the 2 barriers for most folks, which are time and money. About 70% of folks that we survey identify that it's time and money. And so the tuition reimbursement implies that someone has the money to give it out to then wait to get that money back at the end of the semester. And so that in and of itself can be a barrier for people to enroll. And so oftentimes we find that folks take those same dollars and they move them proactively. The reason we have tuition reimbursement is so that we can make sure that people get good grades and, right, that they don't take advantage of it, because we're monitoring them throughout. Most programs, if you look at non-traditional programs across the country, somewhere between 10 and 30% is the retention rate of grown-up learners, of adults, and ours is about 94%. So we retain our folks throughout the program. So you really don't have to worry that the tuition reimbursement process is necessary.
The way it works now is if you leave, then how long do you have to stay before you don't have to pay it back?
You have to stay with the district for 1 year.
Okay, and would that be the same with,
So the way that we typically do it is an agreement gets passed through the board, an agreement that says we're gonna look at these different pathways, right? We would only bill you for the pathways that you've chosen within the budget that you have. But it would be up to the district if you wanted to have folks sign an MOU, which would say like, hey, I'm participating in this particular pathway, and either it could mirror what's in your current CBA, or you could add some additional language onto it. So if it were me, I was a special ed teacher, and if I were providing proactive dollars for them to become a special ed teacher, I would say you owe me X number of years of service, probably 3, but I would say you owe them in special education, so that I could start to proactively look at how long people stick around in special ed. We know that if we can keep people about 3 years, that typically they stay in special ed.
So I'm not sure I'm totally following it. So we're saying we have tuition reimbursement for current teachers, continuing education, they have to do that, right? So we're saying we might repurpose some of that for like high school students that we want to incentivize to become teachers.
It could be for any of the pathways that were discussed tonight. So we don't have to stick with one specific pathway. It
Okay.
could be for high school students. It could be for current paraprofessionals that have a teaching certification or have an associate's degree. So we
Okay.
hire a paraprofessional with an associate's degree. They want to obtain a teaching certification. They can go into one of these cohorts where then we would provide them with the monies to get their teaching certification through Bloom Board, but they would get that money up front. That money would go to pay the college instead of, right now what happens is they pay the college as the employee. They take their course, they submit documentation to the district with a copy of their grade, and then they get reimbursed that money. So it kind of breaks down that barrier of having to put that money out first and then getting reimbursed for that.
Okay.
so
And it's a
we
partnership.
would put it out, the money out and then they have to still make the grades though, right?
They would have to make the grades, and then they would give a commitment to the district, maybe 3 years, teaching in the position that
So
they have selected
You
with the
could put that
district.
on as 3 years as opposed to, even
As
though the
opposed to 1.
contract, so that would be an advantage to join this. Well, not necessarily, for us, it would be an advantage. What's the advantage for them doing that versus going through the standard way of doing things?
So go ahead, Lauren.
I think there's a couple advantages, right? So what we find when we survey folks is they tell us that they're not using those because typically tuition reimbursement requires them to put the money out that they don't have, right? Most of our paras especially are living paycheck to paycheck, right? It also, it's hard for them to put that out and then wait to get it
a big
back,
advantage,
right? And the other thing I think that's really interesting is that most folks, once they're selected, because we'll work and make sure that there's a really tight selection process, but once people are selected, they really are committed to the district. And the other thing I think that's really important is we know that teaching is hyperlocal, but our support staff network is even more hyperlocal. So most of your support staff actually live in your community, right? And so to provide an opportunity for folks, right, to be able to really create a career here is a big deal. And I just want to clarify one thing you'd asked about high school students. So this is not necessarily for high school, I would love to support high school students, but we tried. It's really hard to do because every high school has a different block rotating spinning schedule, right? It's just really complicated. So this would be for recent high school graduates, right? So I have a program in Passaic in New Jersey where they already have a program where students are getting their associate's degree. But during their senior year, they're taking them down, they're going on tours, they're talking to them about how this could be an option different than a traditional college placement, right? And then they're hiring them right upon graduation. So technically at that point, they're your high school graduates, but they're grown-ups.
Okay.
Does
And
that make sense?
a para role is typically what, like an assistant in the
A
classroom?
teaching assistant or a personal care assistant, so that one-to-one to the students.
Okay. Do we know roughly how many we have in the district? Sorry,
It's
not
a nice opportunity.
160 around,
Okay.
160, 161.
And you
Okay.
can decide, some districts will say, we have X number of spots. So like when Pennsbury first started, their school board said, we're paying for 5 spots. And then we started with a survey, and then we whittled down an application and a process, right? So you can say things like, we only want to do this for people who have worked for the district for 6 months or more. We only want to do it in certain buildings. We want, right, like you can limit it down to a certain number of people in a certain pathway.
So the recommendation is we start with that pathway, the paras?
Yes.
And we can keep it small and see how it goes too,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it's a great way of building loyalty. If you're here and you get your schooling paid for and you don't have to pay it up front, I think
We
and
can
you
start
get a
with one-
3-year
yes.
commitment.
And we could start with one position.
And the courses are online? Is, okay, online
So
courses.
they're asynchronous. We do some more support the very first semester, mostly because we don't want people mad clicking and right losing time in that way. So we do some synchronous but recorded sessions in the beginning so that they're able to really move pretty quickly through the program. That particular program is broken down into, so they'll take 4 courses in a semester, but each course is broken down into 3 units. They do 1 unit per week, which is how we're able to get them through the entire 16 credits in a semester.
Okay,
Okay, so it's managed and it's meant for working adults.
okay. Seems like a good
Seems like a good
opportunity.
idea.
Yeah.
It's low risk. There's no upfront cost, I assume, just for,
So there's no upfront cost for the agreement, right? And once you do the agreement, then you're totally, right? Then we can decide how many spots and pathways and you want to add and all of those things. Then once we decide exactly what your budget is, then we would do a sales order, which then would get board approved through the
the
typical
sales
bill
order
process.
would be for what?
The sales
tuition
order would be
cost?
for the tuition cost, yeah.
what?
Everything's baked in, so there's no additional fees, textbooks, or anything like that on top of that. Bloomboard's cost is baked in. This is all in per credit
And
cost.
it's in that per credit cost. Okay.
So within this program, how then does student teaching work? Because they would be taking them from
It's a great
PCA
question.
position where they were in the
You're asking a
classroom
great question.
into an internship style position
Yep.
within the building.
So Point Park University has gotten experimental approval from Pennsylvania Department of Education to embed student teaching into the practice. So in a similar way, when you got your principal cert or the letter of eligibility, right, and you counted your hours, they can count their hours towards student teaching during their entire program. And then there's 4 weeks in the second semester where they basically have to switch places like they would for student teaching with their teacher. And so then we just work really hard to make sure that that placement is one in which that switch can be easily done. So if you're a PCA attached to a medically fragile child, right, I'm gonna say, no, we need to switch you over to be in a more flexible situation, right? We're not gonna put you at risk of having an IEP be uncovered. But if I'm a para and I'm assigned as an additional adult to 3 children, right? Me switching places with the teacher now becomes the additional adult to make sure that that IEP is being met while the student teacher is at the front doing what they need to do. Does that make sense?
And how has the success rate been with that long term for people who have gone through it?
Our retention rate is over 90%. Our graduation rate, same. We have been doing this in other states for longer. So our first graduating class for Pennsylvania will be this spring. But the only folks that I haven't been able to retain in Pennsylvania were, they moved, the district said enough. There were other disciplinary reasons or something else came up. But those are the only two reasons that I can think of that I've lost people.
And what about after that 3 years of teachers doing this, how many of them are staying within the field, or do you stop tracking after that?
So
3 years
I would
after
have to
they're out of the
look,
program?
yeah, I'd have to look at a different state just because
That's fair.
Pennsylvania isn't
No, I
far
got
enough
that.
out. So Ohio and Florida are probably a little further along. So I certainly can look into that for you if we want to look at longitudinal data there. But the general consensus and the feedback that we get just anecdotally is this is a great program. It's really hard, but I'm learning a whole lot, and I cannot believe that my district picked me to do this. Like, they feel like it's such a gift, and so I can't imagine that won't be returned, right? Many of these people were we call shoulder tapped, right? Their principal was like, I see something in you, and so that has been, at least from an anecdotal standpoint, I don't think they're going anywhere.
And I will say it covers a lot of the challenges that people do face. I mean, the fact that, stopping, going, taking classes, paying that bill up front, like all those things, I mean, that's why people don't do it.
Absolutely.
How many districts do you serve?
Well, now you're asking me hard questions.
Just curious, since,
So around here, Pennsbury is in their second cohort. They have 2 pathways going. That's probably the one you're going to know best. Pocono Mountain just launched their first cohort. They're going to do 25 total. I think they have half this semester. They're looking for half the second semester. We also have some IUs that have a partnership, and there's districts within that IU. So Allegheny IU is a partner, and they probably have 10 districts or so within that cohort. Does that make sense? So I think I do have some, just casually, just happen to be in the next slide, right? So those are just some of the partners that are currently.
you said you were in other states, so
enrolling
you have a
folks.
big following there, or is
Yeah,
this-
we've got about 15 different university partners throughout the country. In particular, we partner with in states where reciprocity is really complicated, right? So Jersey, Pennsylvania, right? Places that I tried to send people to Ohio, PDE told me no go. So if the president of the company just said, we were at a conference, and he said, if you add up all of our enrollments across our 15 university partners, we are top 10 educational prep provider in the country.
What's your recommendation about what we should try first?
I would like to see us try offering this to our paraprofessionals that are in the district, that are interested, that have an associate's degree and are interested in becoming a teacher. I think it's a great opportunity for those individuals. A lot of them live in the community, and it's a good way to give back to our employees.
Would be a minimum requirement of how much time they've worked here, and look at that too?
We can take a look at that. We can look at the list to see how long employees have been with the district to determine what that time frame should look like.
Do you have thoughts on if you'd offer it to all of them, or what the boundaries would be?
So I think the next step would be, once we board approve the contract to work with Bloom Board, we would create a survey that would be able to go out to our employees to see what the interest is. And then once we receive the results from that survey, we would be able to better determine what the next steps would be with the cohort. And then we would be able to budget for that as we work through the budget for next year.
Okay.
Have you had anyone ever reach out to you to ask if there's something like this offered here?
I
Any of
have.
the people that we
I have
right now?
not had anyone directly reach out to me here in the district, though I have heard about other districts offering this program. And so when I started to have the conversation with Lauren, I was really excited, just thinking about the conversations I had with Dr. Barrios, Dr. Palmer, about, wanting to offer the Penridge opportunity of Penridge grads get the interview, a first round interview, and what that looks like with our mission and our vision for hiring and recruitment. And so through our conversations, what a better way to promote this opportunity to become a teacher in the Penridge School District, but to offer this to our current employees, as well as Laura and I had some long conversations about the high school students as well, because they go through high school here in Penridge, and if we are able to commit to those high school seniors when they graduate to come back and work for the district and obtain a teaching degree, they can spend their whole career here in Penridge. And I just through our conversations that we've had, it just, in my mind, aligns to what the vision and the mission is from a recruitment lens in the district.
The final thing I would say is when we survey, we will survey anyone who's in the same collective bargaining unit. So don't be afraid, because there'll need to be a para. But let's say that we send it out and we include bus drivers, custodians, right, library, whatever, right? We still want to say, okay, these folks are interested. They would have the option then of moving into a para role to be able to participate. So I don't want you to think that we can automatically make this happen if you're working in security. But if somebody working in security says, yeah, I'd love to be a teacher, then that's something you'd want to know and you'd want to think about how you would provide an opportunity for someone like that to move into a para role to be able to participate in the future.
Okay.
That's good.
Yeah, sounds good.
Lauren, if we have a teacher who's been out of college for a long time, and they're taking an entry-level English class, or are there supports at that university to help? You know, like let's say they're doing an asynchronous course for the first time, and they have to write a research paper. Is there teach them soup to nuts? And,
Yeah, there's tons of supports,
Okay.
but they will not be writing papers. Because what they are doing is all job embedded. So an example would be one of the first courses they take is on internalizing curriculum, right? So there are, and I'm happy to show you guys all the modules, but the learning is differentiated. And so it's not about whether or not they answer each question, it's whether or not they master the skills. So then they're going to say, okay, I need to go to my mentor on site and get your scope and sequence curriculum and your lesson plan template and your district calendar. And then their artifact of evidence is going to be their capacity to take all of those things and all of the learning and put it together and demonstrate that mastery. If they don't demonstrate mastery, they're actually sent back to get more practice and get more supports from the professors. So does that help?
Yes.
But they're like the English, they wouldn't have to necessarily do an English course because their block credit associate's degree takes care of all of those foundational core classes.
Got it.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
And I can take any associate's degree as long as it's from an accredited place. So I have folks that have an associate's degree in culinary. I have somebody else who had an associate's degree in cosmetology, and they are doing really, really well.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, sounds really good.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, our next agenda item is the HR dashboard.
So this month you will see that we posted a total of 30 positions. We filled a total of 24 positions. We had 7 resignations, 3 retirements. Our leave of absence data is there. One thing I'd like to highlight, that next month you will see a 3rd page on the HR dashboard. The 3rd page will be a snapshot of transportation staffing. We will have the number of drivers, the number of routes in the transportation department, as well as the number of applicants that apply that have a CDL, need a CDL. We will share resignations and retirements specifically to the transportation department. And then we will also be showing you the number of applicants that are in the onboarding process, the permit testing, behind the wheel training, and then when they have an assigned route. So next month, we will add a 3rd page to our dashboard that will be specific to the transportation department.
Good, that's
Can
great.
you add number of positions needed to fill?
Absolutely.
Because we talked about that. It's always, I don't know how close we are.
Sure.
Excellent. And then finally, HR updates.
So tonight we're going to share some updates from the department. We will have an upcoming Penn Ridge Job Fair in December, probably about mid-December. We're still finalizing that date. We have been attending football games to be in the community and recruit for some of our support staff positions. I'm sure some of you have seen the pictures out there of the Rams hats that they're all wearing that we handed out at our table at the football games. As well as we are starting to plan for our spring recruitment fairs. So we will be attending 3 college recruitment fairs this year. That will be at Millersville, Penn State, and Kutztown. Upper Bucks Co-op program. So we interviewed one student from the Nutritional Services Department at the Upper Bucks Technical School. That individual will be working at the Penn Ridge High School. He is going through his onboarding right now with the district. We have 2 other students that are scheduled for interviews from the Upper Bucks Tech School. They are scheduled for an interview at Central Middle School and Sellersville Elementary School. We have 2 students who expressed interest in our maintenance department, and they're being scheduled for interviews soon. So at our November Personnel Committee meeting, we will be bringing those students to have them recognized as being the first students in Penn Ridge to go through the co-op program.
Excellent.
Nice to see how that's happening so quickly.
Yeah,
We're
It's
excited.
amazing. Yeah.
everybody's excited about it. So this is just an update on position control, which we, the board approved at the end of the school year last year. So far, we've been able to get into the system our 12-month employees, our TAs and PCAs, and our nursing staff. Right now, I'm working on the elementary and secondary teachers. We're trying to, this has given us the opportunity to make sure that within the 3 systems that we use, position control, the budget system, and Power School, where all the teacher schedules are, that the information across those 3 systems are consistent and accurate. It's been not difficult, but it's been a challenge to make sure that that is accurate. It's taking some time, a little bit longer than we anticipated. I'm hoping to finalize the professional staff in the next week. The big next project for position control will be the EDR contracts. And before that happens, we'll probably be integrating with the personnel budget, the position control and personnel budget.
And the last update is our benefits timeline. So this year, we have a lot of moving pieces when we look at benefits with contract renewals, rolling out the Prudent RX program to our staff. So we put together a benefits timeline for the fiscal year 25-26. You will see that September and October, we've been reviewing our claims information for benefits planning. We've met with union leadership for PEA and PSPA. During the month of November and December, we will be completing RFPs for Independence Blue Cross and Health Equity. We will also be preparing communication that will be rolled out regarding the Prudent RX program. In January, we will have a renewal for Arms RX, which is our prescription company. We will present to the board RFP information regarding Independence Blue Cross and our flexible spending provider Health Equity. And we will roll out to the full district the Prudent RX program. In February and March, we will have our Delta Dental renewal. We will have our Equitable Life renewal. We will again bring present claims information and benefit premium updates during Personnel Committee meeting. And we will target the March board meeting for approval of any benefit renewals and premiums for the 26-27 school year. April and May, we will finalize the RFP process with Independence Blue Cross and Health Equity, and we will also have a stop-loss renewal. So you can see this year is a pretty busy year for benefits. So we just wanted to prepare and provide you information about what to expect over the remainder of this year.
Tara, what's the difference between the Prudent RX and the Arms RX?
So Prudent RX is a program that we are going to roll out with Arms RX. So Arms RX is our prescription provider. Prudent RX is for any employee that's on a specialty medication. There's a cost savings to the employee and to the district.
Okay, like a 90-day supply or something like that, okay. Okay, any other questions? All right, thank you. Okay, we're gonna double check public comments.
No
Okay,
reason.
we do have one. Dan Biebernitz.
Hi, Dan Biebernitz, Hilltown. Thrilled about what I just heard. Very, very happy. I had a couple comments and concerns. Number one, as someone who is a teacher and went through that program, I would love to see the practicum extended. 4 weeks riding in the teacher's seat may not be enough to really give them the skill base that if I learned anything, it was definitely during that practicum period. So making sure that it's extended beyond 4 weeks is a recommendation I would make. But I do love that the program is tailored explicitly to Penridge. So all the academic studies that they'll be doing will, again, not teach them to learn whatever they might be doing, but focus explicitly on how can they be best suited for Penridge. Love that. Another comment that Lauren brought up is that we are in a pretty good position with our staffing in comparison to where we could be. I'd like to remind everyone that while this onboarding program sounds amazing and is a great way to bring in staff, I do want to remind them that retention is also a very important part. And I'm not trying to say good job, but also I want to make sure that we're doing what we can to keep retain our staff. I would hate to go through all this work to train staff to and upgrade our staff internally just to lose them because we have the second lowest paid teachers in the county. I think that's something we can improve upon, and that would help increase retention. The last thing I wanted to say is I really appreciate, Ms. Mossman, the transparency regarding transportation. I know, and I've been here for several comments about people concerned about bus routes and bus staffing. So making that very public for everyone, making that so that people know what's going on, that we are making our best attempts is really valuable. So I appreciate that transparency. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, well, that concludes the Personnel Committee for tonight.
Sure. Just keep rolling.
All right, so we will continue on to the Facilities Committee meeting for October 13th. First up, we're going to have a presentation by ICS. So
No public comment.
yeah, there's no public comment, sorry. So if you guys ready,
Yes.
floor's yours.
Well, thank you so much for having us. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and talk about the subject. We're going to give you an update on the capital projects, the ones from 2025 that are completed. Ryan's going to talk about the 2026 ones that are in design presently, update on the progress there, the timeline and so forth. And then we'll step through the campus stadium athletics analysis here at the high school, middle school. Our friends from T&M, JP Kelly, Chris Jensen, will talk about the zoning, the site findings, and I'll walk through the concepts that we've coordinated with the administration, the athletic director, principal here on, and talk about some of the budgets for that and what the possible next steps would be to move forward. So I'm going to turn it over quickly here to Ryan, and he'll go through these projects.
Yeah, it's nice to meet everyone. Ryan Murphy, project manager with ICS. So first thing I'd like to draw the attention to, and it's number one on my list as well, the background of the screen that you're seeing is the new track replacement that we completed this past summer. For those of you who've had an opportunity to go out and look at it, I think it's turned out great. But so that's what you're seeing in the background. Other things that we've done is we have the dust collection system at the high school that was completed. There's still some training that we're in the process of scheduling, but that's all been put in and it's on and operational. We had some door replacements that went on throughout the district. All that is complete. And the district operating center project is complete as well. And we got some bollards in at the transportation facility. And then finally, at the West Rock Hill, that BAS upgrade, that was completed at the end of last month. So that is up and running as well. So just some photos of the work that was complete. You saw the track on the previous slide. On the right, you got the dust collector, and on the left, you got some of the new bollards put in. All right, on to 2026. So I know that we've shared this slide before in this meeting. I don't need to kind of rehash stuff that's already been talked about. Just a reminder for everyone of what we have planned. So we have some generator replacement at Bedminster and West Rock Hill. We have a domestic hot water replacement at Delabler and Grass. Temperature controls at Seiler. Boiler plant replacement at West Rock Hill, and then finally the roofing project at the Central Middle School. So going through some updates of what's been completed so far. So we have the design development drawings received for all of the hot water, boiler, and generator projects. We've got them all received. We have reviewed them in constructability meetings, sent our comments out to the design team, and have actually, as of last week, got the updated drawings. So I'll talk more about that later. The roof drawings we're tracking for an October 7th submission. We received them. We're currently going through review, giving them some comments on what they can improve in the details before we send it out to the public. And so what I have on the right-hand side, and this is just something that came up as we were reviewing the design, the current generator in the elementary schools does not meet current building code. So one thing we had to work out a solution for was how we're going to get a new and slightly bigger generator to service your building when the current one actually does not meet building code as it stands. So if we go to the next slide, this is showing our solution. So what we have here is we show the generator being placed outside on a concrete pad. This is an electrical drawing, so you don't see the fence that is surrounding it, but there will be a fence that's making sure everyone's safe and away from this equipment. And it's going to be wired into that electrical room underground. So again, safety is the #1 priority in making sure that we implement a system that's code compliant, services your building for years to come, but is also safe to those who occupy. And what I have here is just a quick look ahead of what's next. So I've already talked to the first two and how we've received those 75% construction drawings. We're currently going through and providing feedback and also updating our budget just so that everyone in the room knows what the drawings are and if we're making sure that we stay on the budget that we originally projected. So in the next coming months, we'll be reviewing that and presenting that updated budget to you all. In November, the plan is to release these bid documents and receive bids from people working on this 26 capital projects. In December or January is when we will share those bids that we received. January is the board approval, and then August is when we plan on completing the work. Obviously, each of those projects will have different completion dates. The goal is to make sure that we complete them as quickly and efficiently as possible without interrupting any activity you have in the school. All right.
What's the estimated total cost of all those projects?
The budget was 5.6 million. I believe we're still on track with that now. Given the change in the necessitating putting that both generators outside, there's some adds and minuses that kind of appear to be a wash right now because the outside generator is just a bit cheaper. It's obviously more work putting the pad out there or the wiring underground. But as it turned out, the generators placements that are in there now don't have the proper allowances for the neighboring equipment. So it necessitates putting it outside. But the good news there is it seems like it's a pretty straightforward solution that will be cost neutral-ish. That makes some sense. Yeah. I want to offer sincere appreciation to Mr. Brantville and all the work that he put into those 2025 projects to this point, getting them completed on time and so forth.
What's the fuel source for the generators now? Is it going to be the same?
Say that one more time for me.
What the fuel source for the current generators? And then what are the new generators? Are they gonna be same fuel source or?
Yeah, same
do you
fuel
know
source.
What they are? Diesel?
Yeah.
Is that what they are?
Any more questions on
I
25?
appreciate the timeliness, getting out the bid early is a good thing, so we're good on track.
Thanks, Ryan. Okay, stepping into the stadium campus athletics assessment, what we were asked to do as Schrader Group, T&M, to review what's going on at the site, a lot of coordination. We had interviews with Mr. Hunt, the athletic director, also the principal here, and talked about some of the needs. The administration offered us a lot of background on that when we were doing our facility condition assessment. We'll talk about kind of the lines of those. So we've gone through and reviewed all of these different pieces, all the way culminating in an estimation of a budget for construction and a potential schedule, right, that would be highly dependent upon when you want to move and when we would need to coordinate with the sporting schedules and so forth. We have an approximation of the timeline for those things. So off the top, for the site considerations and the things that we're going to talk about in a little bit more detail as we walk through these different concepts. You have an expanded baseball program throughout the district. You don't have a suitable field here to host those games, especially considering the softball games, and many of these are off-site, and I know that it's a logistical problem for the folks here. We have scheduling conflicts between, you have what seems like a lot of fields here, but you have two, large schools, and accommodating a great group of teams, it serves to be very tough, whether it be for between the high school and the middle school, the different types of sports, and then kind of necessitating turfed fields and being adjacent with balls to some of the track programs. Anyway, a lot of congestion in general. Some of the practice fields surrounding the campus here are not regulation size. They're not suitable for games. They're not appropriate for some practice and so forth. So that's a challenge. Turf issues, as you may know, above the stadium here, those practice fields do also host the throwing events, and it's tough to see in some of the pictures we have, but it presents a challenge to the field conditions. That, along with being on a slope up there with the water issues, are kind of all those challenges, being a little bit inaccessible for particularly spectators up there for many of the games is a challenge. And then generally, the bleachers, dugouts, fencing, protection of the transportation facility, buses over there and so forth, all things that were discovered during our interactions and coordinations with the administration. So I'm going to invite JP from T&M to come up here to talk about some of the things we found when looking at the site.
Evening, everyone. JP Kelly, supervising engineer with T&M. As John said, we took a look at the site itself, first starting with the zoning ordinance specifically for the township. So what you're going to see on So what you're going to see on this slide is just some of the key findings that we took from our review of the zoning ordinance. So just kind of going down the list here first, looking at the use of the site. So both a school use and recreational use are both permitted by right. So no any type of relief would be needed for what you're going to see on the concept plans going forward. Also looking at the steep slopes. I think everybody's probably pretty aware that there's some steep slopes out there on the site coming down from where the fields are now down to where the buildings are where we're at today. So we just looked at basically the township has some tolerances that are allowed in terms of steep slopes and how much can be disturbed if a project like this was to go forward. So in looking at that, just based on the concept plans that we put together, it looks like they would be within what the township's allowances are. So again, no relief would be required. We would just have to basically show to them, the percentages of disturbance that would be required for the field improvements that were shown on the plans. Next, looking at the impervious coverage. So this one's going to be important for the option that we're showing synthetic turf fields for, because depending on how the township would interpret synthetic turf, they could consider that an impervious surface. And the site as it is right now, there's lots of parking, obviously 2 buildings on the site. So it's pretty close to what the township's allowable amount is for impervious surface as it is. So depending on that interpretation for the synthetic turf option, there could be some relief that's required there. So I think we'll we'll show that once we get into the slides that show the concept plans themselves. Then going down to number 4 there, this would be applicable for the northeast corner of the site where the property line abuts the residential property that's up in that area. It's behind where the transportation facility is. There would be a vegetative buffer that's required along there for any of the improvements that we would do for the fields themselves. So I think, again, we'll get into that once we show the concept plans and kind of how those could be affected depending on, what we choose to do in terms of the field layouts. And then lastly, the lighting. Again, one of the options for the field layout includes lighting. So again, depending on how high those would need to be, sometimes those the height can vary depending on the field layout and how much lighting you'd actually need. So the township ordinance has a requirement where they don't want you to go higher than 70 feet. So again, depending on the lighting layout that would be needed and the design that would be needed, there could be some relief that's required there as well. Yep.
Thank you. Thanks. So knowing all that, walking in, this is kind of a layout of some of those considerations that we talked about in the beginning, the identified challenges of the campus athletics currently, and it's just highlighting on here the different issues that you kind of see or the things that you need to overcome, everything from down the right-hand corner here, the baseball games, to the limited playing surface. Obviously, you just have the one turf here, and there's some sports that are particular to turf, most commonly played there. You do have limited playing areas or hours on these surrounding fields because of the lack of lighting on 5 and 7 up there above the stadium. You can see that for that whole area up there on the top left corner, they're not regulation size fields. The natural turf up there is a challenge for maintaining just because of the overuse. The fact that it's on a slope, we'll have some pictures that kind of show that, and the rutting that can occur from them being used for throwing events, if you will. So you can see there's kind of these issues span the entirety of the athletic areas on site here. So these are a couple of the pictures that show, you can see the kind of slope that you're looking at, pretty evident in that picture on the left, that it's kind of bowed, not a flat surface. Tough to really show some of the rutting, but you can see the overuse there where you have some areas of lack of grass growing, the distorted surface of the field and so forth. It's up and away from where most of the parking is, just a little bit tough to get to, and that drainage from the slope and overuse is just a problem for everything up in that area. So this is the first concept. This concept does not involve the addition of any sort of synthetic turf fields, but it shows what's possible on the existing areas now if they were adjusted in this first concept to allow for full-scale playing surfaces up above the stadium here. And we'll show some close-ups of these, but generally you get more natural grass playing surfaces above the stadium. You have a separation of the throwing events off of those fields. You have some areas for water to gather, given the new layout up there to help with some of those runoff and water issues that you've seen up there previously. Down in the right-hand corner here, you see a full-size baseball field and a full-size softball field, and we'll look at the close-ups there and talk about some of the considerations involved. Here's the close-up of those. Again, natural grass playing surfaces. There is a retention wall here on the left side, on that soccer field left side. It does necessitate, to have that playing field expanded and levelized. It does require a retaining wall around the top side. You can see the area in the center there for gathering some of the runoff and managing that. On the right side, you can see dramatically expanded playing surface there, allowing for a lot of different types of sports. And of course, the separation on the right side here of the javelin, the discus, and the shot put into their own areas. So this would be a significant manipulation of that ground up there, but it would allow for more playing surface, more regulation playing surfaces, and to try to improve the quality of it. Some of the challenges here, if you wanted to do anything dramatically, to host games up there, to have like a competition level set of fields. If you were to go that route, you'd have to, get involved in some irrigation, some outside management, probably these, because they're natural grass surfaces that are going to require a lot of additional type of maintenance if you actually wanted to host varsity sports up there. So this is primarily, in this concept, just expand the playing surfaces, mostly for practices in that respect. You're going down to the right-hand corner, right? So this is where the existing softball and baseball field is. They're repositioned slightly. There's the introduction of a walking path, dugouts, a platform for bleachers, and so forth. A significant retaining wall on the outfield of the baseball field to allow for that level surface all the way up adjacent to the middle school there. That has been pushed back and up, playing north here, you'd say. Significant retaining walls around behind the back of that home plate area and along the first base line. Significant height change there, and the addition of that path that allows for access from the parking lot on the lower left-hand side here to the different areas of the stadium. What you'd need also in this rendering is a fence running down the street side here, the third baseline that's represented by that segmented line. We'd have to figure out what the height of that need to be. Probably be a pretty significant expense if you're going to go up high and far to protect that facility from baseballs coming over that way. So, and then there's water retaining areas here to manage the runoff and so forth from this area. But this concept, again, all natural grass turf would hit a lot of problems, and we'll show that kind of in a matrix that compares the different options and which of those different areas of concern have been addressed. But again, this is a natural gas, no turf option, this concept one that we're showing that addresses many of the district's challenges here at the campus. So the budget for that, again, we're trying to be a conservative approximation. Significant work that needs to be done onto these fields. There are some unknowns as far as the level of rock that would have to be moved to do any of these. Certainly going to have some input from the local jurisdictions and a lot of work to do to kind of get across the goal line. But the budget that we've approximated this is $9.2 million, so pretty significant investment to correct some of the challenges or address some of the issues that you see here at the campus. We're going to get baseball and softball games on site, regulation size fields up there, the separation of the track events, the turf slope and so forth. We'd address those things, make them flat and give the area. Partially addresses field accessibility, right? Because it's going to give you, access to those throwing events through the stadium there and so forth, and gives you a little bit more access to that top portion of the territory, and gives you the dugouts, fencing, and netting that we were talking about on the baseball and softball side. So moving on to concept 2, and this one we leave that top area as is, the top left area. We talked about addressing those fields up there that are not regulation size and so forth, and the throwing events and the commingling of those things. That's kind of just left as is. In this concept, we're going to add some synthetic multi-purpose fields. Here on the right side, the scope for the softball and baseball remains the same as it does in the previous concept, but instead of investing in those fields up top, making the regular fields, grass fields, into regulation size ones and separating out those throwing events, we leave them as is and take a concept towards synthetic fields over here to address some of those other issues. Right, so in this world, we have that similar concept below where we have a path coming up, and now it reaches up into this next level above where we'd have 2 synthetic multi-purpose fields. Those pads around there represent concrete pads for bleachers. The yellow dots on there represent lighting. The first pass conceptual lighting for that, and this is going to give you additional, synthetic playing surfaces. So it's going to give you the ability to play some of those sports that require that, or better played on there, more traditionally played on there. You think of like girls' high school field hockey and so forth. regulation fields to address those, and the lights extend your playing hours dramatically. So this is going to check a lot of boxes for the district. It's going to give you, that represents a path going around each of those. Significant retaining walls here, changes in elevation. You can see that they're all set, and that's meeting the current contours of the hill. Up there is very similar footprint to the fields that exist up there currently, but with the expansion of that baseball field and the retaining wall added there on the lower section. Again, significant netting needed for that lower area.
How big are those fields?
Say that one more time.
How big are the fields that you're saying? You said they're not regulation anything, are they?
They are, so the two synthetic turf fields up at the.
For soccer?
Right, so they're those two synthetic turf fields, they're
Okay.
regulation for
Just look
soccer
small.
and for field hockey. Yeah. So they're 300 feet long and 180 feet wide.
Okay.
Yep.
And it's not up showed on there. They could be painted with all the different sports. They could be painted with all the different sport lines on them. It's just not shown that way.
Yeah, so typically they would have permanent lines on there representing the different sports that you could conceivably play on there. This does not allow for lacrosse on those fields, but it would give you the ability to have some of the sports that are concurrently at odds with their scheduling to move over to here. You need just a little bit more space. That's a concept that we could entertain, but it's not shown on here. That makes it's just a little too constrained to get two of them with that extra, with the 30 feet or so that you need for varsity lacrosse.
Could one be lacrosse and the other?
Yeah, it's something that we could explore. This currently doesn't, just because you're going back to some of the constraints on the right side of this with the neighboring property and the necessitating of vegetation and so forth. It's kind of a tight squeeze. That's something that we could definitely entertain, and we'd have
We
to
could
find
just
out
do
just a
one
bit
field,
more.
right?
Say more
We could
time?
just do one field.
Yeah,
Instead of
you
two.
could,
I mean, we already have one turf field.
right, yeah. Yeah, I mean, you certainly have some, if that was the, if that was, something that was impactful and you weighed that against, and there's some, obviously, more work to do with the community to discover what the appropriate resolution is, but given the advantages of this, the concept came out this way. But it's certainly worthy of discussion. It's a concept that could be explored more if that was, something that was
And I
meaningful
think
to the district.
those were actually put in that location because that kind of minimized the amount of earthwork that would have to be done, which is a large part of the cost.
Of the first one.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is, initially we'd showed the administration, high-level concepts of kind of going sideways with natural grass ones that went vertically and gave you a little bit more space. The challenge is you don't get the synthetics, and when you do need to use synthetics, you have to go down much deeper, and you're more disruptive, more costs, more
And
considerations.
The further back we go on that hill, the more rock you're likely to run into as part of the concern.
Yeah, it's a lot of land here, obviously, but it's not maybe the most conducive to some layouts, if you will. So there's some constraints there, but a lot of opportunity clearly to address many of these concerns of the district. So again, lighting here extends those hours. This shows lighting on the lower fields too, the softball and baseball fields. That path that gets folks around provides accessibility to all these fields and so forth. So checking a lot of boxes, if you will, in this concept. This is highlighting that same lower field with the lights here, same deal, significant retaining wall out in center field, those paths that are going around, areas for taking care of the water on site, retaining wall behind home plate, fence up the third base line, protecting the transportation facility. So, a pretty dramatic change and expanded availabilities here at the campus. So again, this is what we hope to be a conservative estimation of costs. It provides many of the similar things, and it gives you extended playing hours. And we'll go through a checkbox of kind of the things that we feel that this addresses amongst the two different options. Yeah, so You'll notice the green check marks indicate that we feel that it fully satisfies things that were identified in consultation with the administration here, all the feedback and meetings we have with them, the athletic director, principal, and what we've shown here. So concept one addresses, many of the issues. The playable hours, chiefly in the field space, it doesn't fully adequately or maybe fully meet the needs there, as it doesn't extend the playing hours, it doesn't extend the playability of those surfaces, right? There's still going to be a limitation to how much you can do on them and keep them operational as varsity fields and so forth. It does give you more regulation, size fields. The turf issues from throwing events in that first concept, they're separated, right? So you extend them, you take them off the same playing surfaces. Drainage issues, that would be addressed throughout that process of regrading and providing those areas for collection of water. The accessibility of throwing events and fields on top of the hill, this is partially addressed in both of those. In the second concept with the turf fields and the extension of that path up there, you get more accessibility to more fields and so forth. It doesn't quite get you up to the top for those throwing events, fully. It's a little bit of a challenge for a spectator maybe to be up there. So you're kind of addressing, different areas here. Certainly when you move those throwing events right above the stadium, that's a little bit more accessible than where they are in the fields now. In the second concept, you're providing more fields with more access, but not quite fully addressing that one. So it's partially satisfying a lot of those challenges. Bleachers, dugouts, fencing, netting. Again, you saw that there was different areas that were additional areas for spectators, areas of traversing the campus and so forth, and providing the protection for the transportation facility, particularly as where it comes close to the baseball field there. So,
How is that handled now? There's still a field there. Is there a fence up? There's a field there right now.
there is a field there. Yeah, I don't believe that there's any netting currently protecting those, and I think it's a desire of the district to protect them with.
No, I understand.
Yeah.
I know the field's there. I just wonder why.
We aren't playing games there?
We aren't. No games are played.
No, that's practice,
Okay.
not big enough.
So I have a question. In regard to, for example, like the lacrosse, that you say concept one, it doesn't fully, except in the concept one, it showed that what you added, there is lacrosse, but in concept two, there is nothing that's adding to lacrosse. So how come in concept two, it's marked as green for lacrosse?
So
Do you
let me
see
where-
concept two? There's nothing additional in the concept that lacrosse is getting. So how
Well-
come it's saying that it's marked as green, but in concept one, it's orange, but when you showed it, there is something additional that's offered to lacrosse?
I can answer that one, actually.
Oh,
My daughter
good.
played lacrosse, and they wouldn't always have access to turf, and they play almost all their games on turf. So adding that extra turf field would give them the ability to practice. Not a full game.
But it's not, it's saying on
It would
there.
have additional turf. So most of the sports are played, like field hockey's played on turf. But
Yes.
if they can't get the main field, they have to go play on the grass. And that's not,
Yeah.
so I think that's why it would help
But
lacrosse.
concept two, I thought you said that it doesn't include lacrosse, that's
Doesn't
why.
have a full field, but you could still practice.
It doesn't have a full field for a game, right? So, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think that the issue necessarily is a varsity lacrosse game going on concurrently with track practice, right? It would be more of a concept of them practicing and balls flying around while the people are playing on the track. If they were to, they could practice on on an improved and expanded area where they would be away from the track and field folks.
Yeah. But like
Right.
now,
Got it,
boys
it doesn't
lacrosse
say
starts
it.
at like 8:30 at night or something.
Okay, because he
Because
said it
there
and then it
is-
didn't say it here, so that's why, okay.
Yeah, this is,
Couldn't have a game.
like many things, we try to simplify it into something that shows the concepts, but there's, a lot of back and forth kind of as you go across these, the different solutions or the different areas that are addressed, so similar, if you look at that accessibility throwing events and the fields on the top of the hill, that's really kind of two issues, right? We have accessibility to those fields and accessibility to throwing events. The one concept, it does improve the accessibility to the throwing events, and the other one, it improves accessibility to more playing fields. So it's kind of a general concept, and there's, a number of things, that could be expanded upon that, but it's hitting different areas, and it's shown that it's not fully satisfying it in either of them. It's certainly something that could be expanded to address those, but it would be an additional expansion of scope. And it's certainly something that if it came to the top of the pile as you guys go through all your decision-making and getting input from stakeholders and so forth, that could be, we could dig into the depths of what we're talking about here.
Because the throwing events are going to leave, they do leave serious damage that kids can, snap their ankle in. You know what I mean? Like, try not to have those things on a grass field where kids are going to be practicing or playing other sports, I think would be helpful.
Well, we'd love to do it all, but we can't afford
Yep.
that. I mean, that's
Yep.
the bottom line. I mean, those numbers are very high. And,
Yeah.
we're certainly not in a fiscal situation to do all this, so we have to pick and choose and see what we can do. I think it's unrealistic to.
Yeah, and we wanted to try to show you a scope here, and, it's pretty expansive, right?
No,
And
that's
we
fine.
can
No, I
drill down.
understand why.
Don't want to overpromise,
It would be nice to break some of it out. Like, say, if we wanted to do a turf field just, and then, 5 years do something, or whatever. I mean, we would just have to
Right,
approve
and,
it. But
we'd be happy to dig into scenarios as time goes on, given some direction
Yeah.
on those type of things. It would make a lot of sense. Yeah, no one's going to look at this and say, "Hey, that's the number. Let's go do it." Right. Generally speaking, that's not the response that we get. We want to kind of give you an overview of what the limitations of the site are, what the opportunities the team kind of came up with in consultation. Again, Dr. Barrios, Dr. Palmer, Mr. Albert, Mr. Bramble, very helpful, along with the athletic director, providing us a lot of feedback, a lot of iterations, refining some of the things that were identified from the very beginning when we did that facility condition assessment, and some of the things clearly were not priorities, when it came to the larger group. But I think we're hitting on a lot of them, right up top.
it's a good idea.
Yeah, I think the one thing we did learn is that, in terms of the water and the grass fields, there's a lot of challenges here on the campus to even just fixing the grass fields as they are. It's gonna cost a lot.
It's helpful to understand, right, that it's a significant investment just to make those fields right up there. Very challenging terrain, to give you, some of the check box. It's still a lot of money, just for that concept one, which you think would be a little bit reduced.
We do need to know. Oh, God.
No, sorry, because you jumped in with the stuff, I was gonna wait until the very end to kind of go through everything. I was just making notes, but, looking at these costs at 9.2 and 13.1, like I struggle. I grew up playing sports and, I was on track. I did throwing events. Like I understand the condition for fields, but I struggle considering we went into last year's budget with where we're at. Now we're looking at between 9 and 13 million for fields. If we're looking at a 70-foot lighting not being approved by the township, I think the netting on the third base side is going to have to be at roughly 80 feet. Because I'm actually going through the same thing somewhere else with the netting being at an 80-foot height to reduce ball travel. And then concept number one, there's no lights involved in concept one, correct?
Correct.
There's no lights involved. I just, actually, before I went to where I'm at, did a project. It was 6 Musco Stadium lights. It was $750,000. That was 2.5 years ago.
For lighting alone?
For stadium lights at a baseball multi-purpose field.
Yeah,
So-
lighting is a big line item.
So we're at, was it 16 lights I saw on this? And that was it was 750,000 for 6 lights. So we're up to 16 lights on that one. So we're looking at, a huge chunk of money just to have lighting between these two fields. And then one of the questions I was curious about, so when you're looking at the difference, I know we said no turf on concept one and that there's turf fields on concept two, and we had talked about impervious surface. Is there any provisions for underground stormwater basins? Is that how, is that a way to defeat impervious surface to help with the drainage issues?
Right, so I
'Cause I know
don't
you have
want
to lift the
to
field
step on
up.
T&M's toes because they're the experts in this, but there are some considerations there.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Chris Jensen, also with T&M. So with the synthetic turf fields, what you see, it doesn't show the fact that they would have underground stormwater associated with those fields. What you saw at the surface were more rain garden type stormwater facilities. So the synthetic turf typically is handled that way with underground storage. That doesn't change the town's interpretation of whether it's a zoning impervious surface or not. So we were speaking about impervious more from the standpoint of zoning.
Right.
And then you have to look at it also from how that reacts to stormwater and drainage and so that's a different concept altogether, but underground is what you would do for those.
And do we know that if we do underground basin, is that going to be able, is the stormwater system currently in place able to accommodate that runoff?
Well,
Like if it goes to the basin and runs off from the basin, or is it, whatever we're tying into, is it able to?
right, so
'Cause I'm assuming it's not being daylighted anywhere, so.
right, so we would have to make sure that the basins themselves, what stormwater runoff is newly generated, is accommodated for in the basin, so that what leaves the basin is less than what would have left that area of the site
Right,
before we
okay.
did any new synthetic turf. So that would all have to get worked out during, an engineering phase once a project is decided upon.
Do we know if there, because in previous discussions, we have very little impervious. Remember, we were gonna give a parking lot to the people up on the ridge further, and the concern was that we had no more. So even if you put a turf field on, does that not affect the impervious surface? Because we were right on the edge from a few years ago.
Yeah, I believe you're right at the edge. So typically, most townships do classify synthetic turf as impervious. We've tried to reach out, haven't gotten an answer yet, but the likelihood would be that it is a zoning area that would need relief. But that can be discussed in terms of the benefits that such a field, say it's one or two fields, would bring, and the fact that we would be accommodating at that very spot with underground stormwater control, so that all has to be
Yeah, that's
factored
important,
in.
yeah. I mean, before we do anything, we want to know if we can even do it.
And John had mentioned some of the other potential zoning elements. As I'm sure you're all aware, most projects have, a couple challenges when it comes to those types of things.
I just know that working on actual multi-purpose field installations, I think most of the ones that I've been on have been either like multi-purpose, like the soccer type fields, or multi-purpose baseball with soccer incorporated, and most of the individual fields were running at around 7 million. So I struggle looking at this, and we're looking at a soccer field, a multi-purpose field, redoing all the stuff, no turf, and then redoing the baseball field, and we're only at 9, and then we're at 2 multi-purpose synthetic turf fields with the baseball fields, and we're at 13. I'd like to see where those numbers are coming from, like what the breakdown is to get us to that 13, because both projects that I've worked on recently for multi-purpose, this would generally probably be in the 20-25 million range, all said and done, when the projects were finished. So if we could see a breakdown to kind of understand, so I can wrap my head around how we got to a 13, but again, I still struggle with where we're at with the deficit wise, that we're even talking about $13 million. So that's where I'm at.
Agreed.
Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, we have to take this discussion and figure out long-term where we're gonna be financially, and then figure out what we can do as we go along. Certainly it'd be hard to recommend going forward with any of this till we have a clearer picture of where we're heading. But it would be helpful to break these things out so we
Sure.
can piecemeal.
And we do have some breakdown of the assumption here. These are just generalized categories. but we'd be very happy to have like a workshop where we go through the assumptions that underpin these different values, right? So the assumptions for, the rock excavation, the assumptions for the actual turf, the lighting, and also for, these are built out of, bids that we've seen recently, numbers that we have received from like lighting contractors, Musco primarily, and so forth. So they're not perfect, but they are numbers that are based upon the team's experience on dealing with projects of similar scope or different pieces of scope across here. So, like I say, whatever you'd like, whatever like a level of detail you'd like to dig into on this, we'd be very happy to accommodate and meet the needs, so forth. And then, if we got to a point where we're looking to drill in further on a concept, we really start working up that design more directly and getting better approximations of costs. And that's kind of shown in as part of the next steps. But this is a sample construction schedule based upon, again, our experience or understanding of the situation here. You can see we have a pretty long stretch here extending through winter for stakeholder input and decision making. We understand there's going to be a process internally here where where the administration and the team here better understands probably the broader scope and desires of the community, stakeholders, and so forth. And then conceivably there, it's just the timeline of how long we would approximate these different pieces of the pre-construction, construction, permitting, close it out to take, just to give you an idea of the timeline of what you might expect if you were to say yes in 6 months to proceed. It's still going to be a significant amount of time through land development, procurement, construction, closeout, and so forth before these things would be a reality. So as you've experienced with so many things, there's a lot of lead time to get across the goal line on these things, as they don't just quite appear. So next steps, for going back to the capital plans, we're continuing, and Ryan showed you what the timeline was for the team on that. So you're going to have more information in the next several months on that development, the analysis, prioritization. That's part of the larger facility condition assessment we did. Always looking forward, trying to help prioritize, the needs of the district across all the facilities. On the campus athletics, you obviously have that whole stakeholder portion of this. It would also be necessarily to do some test bores out there to find out where the rock exists to better approximate any sort of budget or real decision-making on those fields, to understand drilling test bores, which comes at a cost, right, and assessing those fields and helping to drive a budget and take some of the uncertainty out of there. For the process, you might want to go and check out some other neighboring facilities and take a little taste of what's going on there, what you might think of including, or what type of concepts that they've implemented that you might want to see at different locations. So we'd have a whole process to getting to further a concept once we have some more pieces and parts coming to it. But we've provided kind of a baseline understanding of the situation here at the district for moving forward with. So I know we have a few questions, but we certainly appreciate you having us in, and the team was very grateful for all the interaction with the administration to get to this point.
Thanks. A lot of good ideas. Thank you.
Certainly, we appreciate your time.
So then, moving on, we have item 3, approval of bus routes and stops.
Yeah, so each year we're required for the bus routes and stops at the beginning of the year. So once we get those up finalized, signed off on by the drivers, we bring you this on their administrative stuff. Under administrative content, and we just approve those. And of course, you guys all know, you've been around education and school districts and buses long enough. They change on a day-to-day basis as needed, but we just need to approve them once a year, and then.
So the board has to approve this, and why?
It is just part of the requirements of the school board to
Okay.
approve the bus dogs.
So
It's one of those
we don't.
age-old requirements that we just step through. each
Okay.
year. So, yeah. Thank you, Chris.
All right, thank you for that. So that takes us to public comment. Any public comment? No public comment, I don't believe. And that is a wrap on the facilities committee. Our next meeting is scheduled for November 10th.
Could we take a 5-minute break? Welcome back. We're moving on to the Finance Committee meeting for Monday, October 13th. We have no public comment, so we'll get right into it. We have a bunch of contracts up for approval. I'll let Sean take it from here.
All right, next, Mr. Rose, we have contract 23J on the agenda tonight. The first letter A is Valley Forge Educational Services. It's for a one-to-one lead support student identified as 2026-06. And it's for the 25-26 school year. Cost is $53,000 for those services at Valley Forge.
So that's one student?
That's one student.
Okay.
The letter B, also Valley Forge Education Services, this is for food services. Sorry, Daniel. Food services for the student identified as 2026-07. Again, for 25-26 school year, $1,260, and this is a different student from the student before.
So is that student approved elsewhere, or what? This is
I believe this is just the food service piece. I believe this student was
already, okay.
We've already dealt with the contract for the services. Letter C, the Camp Hill School Educational Services for a student identified as 2026-08 for 25-26 school year. Cost $68,999.40.
What does the Camp Hill School specialize in? Do we have more than one student there, or just?
This is the first I've heard.
I never heard of
Camp Hill School. I don't recall this one before. I believe this is our first. We're very few placements there at this school.
You get some more.
Yep.
Yes.
For right now.
Any other? Go ahead.
See, next three are Learn Well Educational Services. Letter D, Learn Well Education Services for student identified as 2026-09. It's for the current school year, and it's $61.55. And if you remember, Learn Well services are the educational piece for a student that is placed in a medical facility. The district is still required to cover the cost of the education. Learn Well does that at the hourly rate. The letter E is also Learn Well 2026-10. Again, the same cost, $61.55 per hour. And letter F is also Learn Well 2026-11, and is also for the 25-26 school year, and at that same $61.55 per hour. So again, all those kids are in medical facilities, and this is their educational piece. Letter G, Christmas City Studio Yearbook. This is for Sellersville Elementary School for a yearbook for the school. Cost is $21.80 per book, and that cost will be paid for by the parents.
So does every school do their own yearbook purchase?
Yeah, they all kind of do their own type of thing for yearbook.
Oh, everybody has a different process and a different. I know we're not paying for it, but it seems to be a lot of duplicate.
It's kind of it's kind of a specific thing to each school.
Yeah,
Principals,
I understand that
different
too.
teachers have different things they want to do with that. Different ideas, different values of that. So, yeah. Okay, letter H, Bucks County Children and Youth. This is an MOU between the Bucks County Children and Youth and the school district for transportation procedures for foster care students that are enrolled in Penridge. So this document is to be updated every so often. I believe it says every 5 years. It's been a little longer than that since Children and Youth brought the document to us to ask for. I think the last time was 2017 that it was updated, but they brought it forth for a review and update, and basically it just provides that the Bucks County Children and Youth and the district will work together to make sure that students that are foster care students within the district will have proper transportation to and from school. So, and both children and youth attempts to utilize or find funding that might be available to help pay for that and so forth. So that's what's laid out in the document. The next one is Music Theater International. This is the North Middle School performance. That'll be in February of 2026. The cost is $740. And this is for their Disney Frozen Junior. This is their school play at North for this year. Final contract I have tonight is our annual contract with the Bucks County Intermediate Unit. Care of mailing those.
Sorry, we're having a
No problem.
computer issue here.
No problem. Developing and mailing those programs.
I'm sorry.
No
Board
problem.
docs went down, so I was trying to follow you on there. Could you start? I missed that. Sorry.
Yeah, this one, the last one, letter J, is the Bucks County Intermediate Unit. This is the annual contract with them for the homestead farmstead notices to be mailed out. They do it for all the districts in the county. The cost is $1 and $1.078 per parcel this year.
So it's $1 to send the letter out to each person?
Each, yep. There's a processing fee, a postage fee, and an IU coordination fee.
Yeah.
You can
Okay.
see it broken out there.
What's it? Oh, okay.
Okay.
That's fine. Moving on.
All right, so that's the
Yes,
end
the
of
next thing up is
Yep.
our Rico copier refresh.
Yeah, so we have a Rico copier refresh. So tonight we're gonna have a Rico copier refresh to look at. Okay. So a little bit of background with Rico and their history in the district. I came in 2015. That next year we put out an RFP to replace the copier fleet in the district. Rico won that RFP in 2016, and that RFP ran from July of 2016 to June of 21. We did another RFP 5 years later in 2021. Again, Rico, that was in the middle of COVID, but again, Rico won that RFP, and they have the copiers that are in place in the district currently from July of 2021 through June of 2026. So they've been our copier vendor for 10 years. But what they're doing at this point is they're proposing a refresh in December of 2025 for a 5-year period. And I will explain why we're looking at doing that 6 months early.
Can you explain what you mean by copying?
Yeah, so copying, what I'm talking about is multi-use devices. They call it MFDs, multifunctional devices. So they are the copiers, scanners, fax machines, printers, yep, that are located in every building within the district. And each building, based on the size of the building, has a number of copiers, MFDs, in place within the building to provide those services to the teachers and the administrative staff and so forth. You'll find them in the offices. You'll find them in the teachers' rooms, their work rooms and so forth. The buildings that are multi-story, you'll find them in each of the stories of the buildings and so forth. So they're the multifunctional devices that do all of that.
Everything paper.
Everything, yep. So why refresh and why are we looking at this in December? The current operating system that's in the copiers, and I keep saying copier, that's what I mean, those multifunctional devices, is Equitrack. Equitrack is the software that runs the system, that runs those multifunctional devices. It goes end of life, meaning out of maintenance and out of service, effective December 31st, 2025. So we learned about this over the summer when we met with Rico to do our annual review of the performance of the machines. And, so they brought to us the fact that the Equitrack software will be going end of life. And we talked about avenues to move forward. One avenue would be to replace Equitrack in December and basically buy a new operating system and put a new operating system on 66 machines that are 4.5 years old and are only going to be here for 6 months. Second option was to look at a refresh 6 months early, change the operating system, put the operating system on new machines, and then have those new machines then carry through for basically 5.5 years instead of five years. So we basically, when Diane and I met with him, we said, I'm willing to entertain taking that to school board, but you got to bring me a new contract for 5 years that costs less than the contract you have right now. If it doesn't, I'm not taking it to my school board. I'll go to the RFP. So they've done that, and we'll get to that. But so where we're at right now is, and why we need to make a change is if something happens to that Equitrack software after December 31st, we run the risk of losing the ability to make those machines work. And we lose the ability to talk to them, through the computers and so forth, and through the network, lose the ability to use them, and so forth. So that could happen or that might not happen, but you run the risk of, if something goes down with Equitrack and our staff can't figure out how to fix it, there's no support to bring it back up. So that's why we're looking at this moving to a refresh earlier. So the new software would be what's called paper cut, and putting that in place will make sure that we continue to have the printer environment moving forward. And to add paper cut to the current fleet, that would basically result in the district paying to add paper cut in December to the old machines, and then paying to add paper cut again in July when we refresh under a new contract. So moving forward now actually saves us that implementation cost of doing that twice. All right, so there are 66 of the MFDs that would be replaced. That's the current fleet across all the whole district. And again, those MFDs copy, print, scan, and they're also our fax machines. Not that we fax much anymore, but every once in a while, we're required to send a fax to somebody or receive a fax. The other thing we're doing here is we have 3 machines in the high school that are pro models, and those pro models are going to be replaced with an IM 8000 model. A pro model is a high capacity printer copier that's more of a professional production model, and they're different than the IM models, and our teachers really gravitate towards the IM models and not the pro models. The IM models are easier to use, and what we found is that the copy counts that are hitting the pro models are at a level now where they can be handled by the IM models. And the pro models are much more expensive than the IM models. So for the ease of use and where the copy counts are now, it makes sense to move away from those pro models into the IM models in those 3 areas in the high school. So I think that will be a welcome change by our teachers, because a lot of them don't care to use. Those machines are very touchy. And the more operators you get using them, the harder it is on the machine. So moving away from them, I think, is something that our teachers at the high school be appreciative of. And we only had those machines at the high school because that was the only place we had the volume that was high enough originally to use those machines. So we're replacing the Equitrack print management software, which again is coming to the end of life, and we put paper cut in place. This solution also offers us the ability to offer mobile print through paper cut. This is particularly helpful at the elementary school, where the teachers there who are using more iPads than laptops. The paper cut will allow them to send jobs from their iPads, whereas they don't have that ability at this point. So that gives the teachers there a little bit more flexibility. We'll have a certified RICO project manager and an implementation folks to put paper cut into place. So RICO will work us through the process through a project manager for the machines themselves and an implementation team for the paper cut software. They will work in coordination with our tech team, and our current tech director, Diane Miller, who we all know is leaving in January, has actually went through 2 copier refreshes here at Penn Ridge. So I want to say she's a pro at it, but she's been through it before, and it would benefit us to be able to use her expertise in December to go through this, November and December, go through this process one last time before she leaves the district. So financial considerations, currently we pay $9,520.11 per month for the equipment lease, and then we pay service costs of .0033 for black and white copies and .0306 for color. Our estimated copy count 5 years ago when we put the current contract in place was 112 million copies over 5 years. Currently, under this new contract, moving forward, for the first 6 months, we will be the same lease amount as the old lease ends, and then it would move to $9,137 a month for the next 57 months. Service costs jump from .0033 from black and white to .0036. That was a number that came in at .0038 in RICO's first offer to us, but we were able to negotiate that down to .0036, and the color number stays the same. And this is the interesting thing. Our estimated copy count now, 5 years later, is about 70 million. So we've reduced our use of paper and copiers here by about $40 million, over the 40 million copies over the last 5 years. So it's
So how much, so it went up 1,000, whatever the cost there. How much does that cost in those 70 million?
I'll show you.
You got it? Okay.
Yep.
We talked about it.
I'll show you. So based on the current volumes of equipment and equipment availability back in 2021. So back in 2021, it was in the middle of COVID, and some of the machines were a little harder to get. So they have the ability to get all the machines at this point. So they're resizing some. About 26 of our machines will be reduced in size. So based on the fact that the number of copies has come down, and the fact that they can get all the models, and machine sizes are basically how many copies per minute it can spit out. We're making some changes to basically right-size the fleet. And there's actually one machine that they've recommended to go up in size, but I haven't actually bought that yet or agreed to that yet. I'm still negotiating sizes and so forth. I'm working through it with them and looking for other cost reductions. Some options they gave us to further reduce costs are to go from 4 drawers to 2 drawers on 2 of the models. Based on 15 machines that are that size, it would be, you see the savings there, about $131 a month. Remove internal staplers from the IM2500s. Again, another 15 machines, about $150 a month. we've looked at these machines and does it make sense to do these two things with this group of machines? And really, it does. The staplers really aren't being used in the IM 2500s, and we could tell that because we asked them to go back and look at the orders for supplies, and they're just not replacing staplers in these machines over 5 years. So it tells us that the staplers, they're not being used, so why pay for something that's not being used? So we're looking at every little angle of this thing to try to find where we can find additional savings and so forth. And adjust 4 additional machines from IM 3500s to IM 2500s based on volume. These weren't machines that were originally identified. There's machines that Diane and I identified as we went through and looked at volume history and so forth. So again, that's another $60.80. So monthly savings potential for all these changes would be about $340, and those savings are in the numbers that I just showed you on the previous page. There are probably another 4 changes that I'm working with the RICO salesperson on to potentially save a few hundred dollars more a month. But just just walking through those, and I did go back and I was asked if these could be put back in place as far as the drawers and the staplers if needed, if we decide that we made the wrong decision, and we can. We can go back and we can add these back. We would change our monthly fee, of course, but we could go back and add these items back. So the pricing is coming through a PA CoStar's contract listed there. The contract was dated to September 26th, 2025. So what that means is that the base pricing, RICO has approval from the state through PA CoStar's contract, which has been bid by the state, which the district is legally can follow through and piggyback on that PA CoStar's contract. And basically it means that we've met our requirements to bid by purchasing through the state, through PA state contract. So we're meeting our state requirements to bid. However, from the baseline dollar or baseline cost in that PA state contract, in order to meet the request that I gave them to bring us a contract that costs less than what we're paying now, they discounted the equipment cost an additional 64%. So the state contract pricing is one thing, but we're getting 64% less than that state contract pricing.
So that number that they publish, someone could buy it for that price, right?
Yes.
But nobody does, I guess. So
you do if you don't negotiate.
If you don't negotiate. So, but as CoStars, you're not getting the low price until you.
CoStars,
then you can negotiate the price down.
CoStars, you have the
price.
ability to negotiate lower prices. So, yeah. So what's included in the refresh are 66 new MFDs that would come in December. Includes the RICO professional services for installing and supporting the machines and the paper cut software. It would be 5 years of maintenance and support for the paper cut, which is the operating software. 5 years of the ability to fax. We would have project management by RICO throughout the implementation. So that would be project management for implementing the machines, taking the old machines out, bringing the new machines in, placing them, make sure they're working, make sure they're connected to our network, working with Jim, our network engineer here, to make sure that everything's working, and then also making sure that the software is working. We talked about the black and white copies, billing at 0.0036, same rate for the color copies at 0.0306. And what that does is that part pays for all of our parts, labor, toner, staples, everything. Everything that we would need to keep these machines running for 5 years, that's what pays for that copy count. And the more we bring our copy count down, the less that costs us. So can see why, we were projecting 112 million copies to 70 million copies, why they wanted to raise the per copy amount, but to 0.038, but we were able to negotiate that down to. So delivery, installation, virtual training, everything is included. So cost
Can I
summary.
ask-
Yeah.
Can you go back one?
There you go.
So how do we encourage our people not to print color copies? Because it's 10 times as much as, there's a big difference if someone doesn't need to use color but uses it. Is everybody aware of that? Or just sometimes you leave color on and it's a black and white picture.
Yeah. So sometimes we lose track of things, and then when it comes back up, it makes us take a look at things. So as we were taking a look at this, we're pulling copier counts, we're pulling color copier counts, and we're seeing where we're at in each building. I've sent one email to every principal about color copying and their as a district wide, and the need to, use that as a luxury and not as, an everyday thing. They've all been put on notice, and I'll be following up with them actually tomorrow with a detailed email about the color copier usage in each of their buildings, and including in that will be the usage per individual in their buildings.
Oh, wow.
So they will be able to realize if they have, and I'll be pointing things out that I ask them to please talk to so-and-so or so-and-so that in their.
Is the default going to be black and white when they pull up their?
The default is always set at black and white on these machines. You have to make a choice to go to color.
Okay.
But
So-
Sean, I
Do
would say
all
most
of
of the
them?
machines are black and white.
Right, that's
not
what I was
co-
gonna
There's
ask.
much few,
Yeah.
very few color
Yeah.
machines.
That's what I was gonna ask,
Only-
depending on schools, is it, for example, I know one of our elementary that has like, just the office has like the
Yes.
colored.
Yes.
And the rest of the ones just have a black and white, is that
Yes.
how it
That
is? Okay, yeah, I think that really does help.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Most of the like the elementaries, they have one color copier, and it's usually in the office or somewhere close to the office. We do have one in the middle schools where the color copier is not in the office, which happens to be one of the higher ones. So we're gonna talk through that with the principal of that building and make some changes. And it could be just, it's a new person that doesn't realize it, and we just need to have a conversation about why don't we use color a little more sparingly and do most of your stuff in black and white. If it's something special, then okay, maybe we use the color then. So it's about education and
Let them know the difference, right?
No.
10 times the cost.
yes, we're gonna.
Sean, could these machines be programmed for a quota amount? Or,
I know they can be programmed to not allow people to do color. I'm not sure if they can do a quote amount, but it's something I can ask.
Also, when it says, like, for paper, when you buy paper, is it the same price for white paper than it is for pink, yellow, green? Or is that all, because
Yeah, so usually color paper costs more than white
it
paper.
does too.
We try to really limit the amount of colored paper. I get it, elementary schools, they like to have some colored paper, and I'm not, I try not to be like, no, you can't have anything. But we really try to limit them, and that's getting charged directly to the principal's budget. So they have a budget, and they know how much they have, and they know how much color paper costs compared to white paper. And they know they have to live within that budget, so they're generally pretty good about it.
Oh, so the colored paper's under their budget?
And the white paper's under the budget. It gets it's charged
And
to
the
their
white
building.
paper.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
So, yeah. And paper costs have come down a lot. During COVID, copy paper was up to $45-46 a case. It's back down. I think it's in.
2862.
Yeah. Thank you.
And
Yep.
Sean, is that bought through the IU? I was just
Yes.
about to ask.
Yep. Yeah, all the districts come together and buy it all through the IU, so we get it, it's about as cheap as we're gonna get it. Because with the IU's buying power. So here's what the cost summary looks like. Current lease, for the Equipment is 9,520, so over the life, 5 years, that's 571,000. We'll have 6 months at that rate, 95, 20, 11, and the rest of the lease will be $937. So over a 5-year period, it would be 550,000. So we're saving about 20,000 in machine costs. And then when you look at copy counts, estimated copy counts, we're about 112 million. So it was about $514,000. That is about 70 million now, so it's about 394,000. So about $119,000 in copy savings. Now, again, that's what we're estimating, right? It may go up or down. Hopefully it continues to go down, but solid savings to 20 grand in equipment for sure. Know that. And I know our copy counts are way down, so that's my best estimate of what the copier count savings is. Total savings is over the 5 years is about 140,000. And just threw in there just at $28.62 a case, which is what we're at right now. For the and if every print was made on double-sided, the savings just in paper would be about 120,000 over what we presume we would be buying 5 years ago compared to now. So really the 140,000 is the savings from the contract. The paper savings is great also, but the 140,000 is the savings from the contract. And we will be working with, like I said, the principals and the teachers to talk about color copy.
So if we can convince them to go to double-sided printing, we could be looking at $250,000 in savings.
Yeah.
Like total.
Yeah, that's yeah.
And I'm curious, and I don't know.
The machines also, they default to double-sided.
Right.
So if you want a single-sided copy, you need to actually work through the options of the machine to get it there.
And is this more like building I don't know how to ask this. Is it more for classroom printed materials, or this is like building related, going out to parents kind of material, like everything?
This is everything in the district that would be.
So would we see more of is there like an inverse to the more that things become digitized for like students, we could possibly see more savings in paper?
Yeah, and I think the numbers we're seeing, 112 million to 70 million, that's that impact you're talking
That's kind
about.
of what
That's
I'm trying
why
to
you're
look at.
seeing those numbers come down.
So it's more like they roll out more lessons and everything online. We're gonna see less paper.
You're using less paper. Yep, which means, which is why, I say like 28 of the machines can be reduced in size, because there's just that count is not there. So I don't see a reason to pay for a bigger machine. I'm gonna right size the machines to where they're at now, and go from there.
Right.
So, is there any questions on this? And this is really, we're at this position to do this 6 months early because of the software going away. If we didn't have a software issue, I would have moved forward, with the RFP process like we do every year and do that. But the unique situation with the software is what brought us to this.
Are there any other CoStar copying? Have you gotten even like searched around to see what's out there? I mean, if we like what we have with Rico, I'd say stay with it. But I'm just curious if there was anything else out there that would.
Can you
be
let them
worth-
know the quality? I mean, I asked this when we were talking the other day, but is it a good quality supplier?
Yeah, Rico is a very good quality supplier. Like I said, in the district for 10 years. I get no complaints about these machines. When I got here in 2015, the first thing Dr. Radican said to me was, "You've got to get rid of these copying machines that we have." They were a different brand. So we went through the process, and by the time we got to the end of that year, those machines were really, really, they just didn't hold up. And so we brought Rico. Rico won the RFP, won the second RFP, and their service is great. When we have an issue, they're here quickly. All the machines have a uptime of well over 99%. And we've had one or two machines in the 10 years that basically they came to us and said, we've tried to fix this machine a couple of times. We believe it's a problem that is just going to keep happening. We're going to swap this machine out with a brand new machine. And I know that happened at South one time with a machine. And I believe there was another building it happened with a machine, and they took care of it on this, right away. They don't drag us along. They give it one or two shots at fixing something, and if it's a lemon, they're switching it out. They're very good about that. And we've actually had machines where we've had, no fault of Rico, but a pipe leak on a machine and ruined a machine. They brought a new machine in and replaced that. So they've been very good to us over 10 years. It's a very good partnership and a very good working relationship. I highly recommend them to keep them here.
I mean, I believe they have a distribution center up in Hanover Township outside of Bethlehem. And I'm just from working around their techs, I know, they're top quality people. So by all means, I think if we're satisfied, we should stick with what works.
Yeah. Mr. Johnson, who is our rep, it took him a while to get this package to me because he had to go very high up in the Rico chain of command to get the prices where he needed to be to bring us back a proposal that was less than what we have now. And he said it's been very difficult because of the threat of the tariffs. And I sent Angelo a text message that of a news article that popped up on my phone. I think I texted you like 6 or 7 o'clock in the morning. Saturday. I apologize for that. But I saw this ad pop up that said that 100% tariff is going to be added November 1st to China. And so I quickly looked up where are Rico copiers made? China, Thailand, and there are some made in America. But that 100% tariff really scares me, and I really want to get this deal done and get the contract signed before that happens. So
Good reason to. Any other questions?
if it's okay with you, I'd like to move this forward
I think,
to the board.
yep.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. That was good. Moving on, we're covering the Act One index tonight. I believe you have a presentation for that.
Yeah, so there's a number of items on the agenda about Act One index this year. So the Act One index came out last month, at 3.5%. The state certified the Act One index. The 25 to 26 year, it was 4%. The year before that, I think it was 5.1%. So the trend with the Act One index is it's dropping. So it's 3.5% for 26-27, which means that a school district can raise taxes up to 3.5% without having to seek any type of referendum exception. So what does that mean? So the current tax rate is 140 mils, 3.5% Act One index. An Act One index would be about 4.9 mils. We take the tax rate to 145 mils. Our current assessed value that we received this month is $672,916,760. So if you take that increase times that assessed value, the Act One index would generate about $3,210,000 for next year's budget. So looking at assessed value growth, as you know, the last couple of years, I've been talking about shrinking margins and shrinking local revenues, and just a general tightening of numbers as far as revenue numbers go, and the pressure on pricing and so forth. So when we just look at assessed value, and assessed value is the major driver of our ability to increase revenue here in the district without raising taxes. If assessed value is going up at healthy amounts, it increases tax revenue, and sometimes then, not sometimes, but for a long period of time here, helped us be able to not have to raise taxes. And you can see there, we went through a period of time where we had assessed value increases of nearing and over 1%, which created years of revenue growth, sometimes over $1 million, nearing $1 million, and so forth. But if you look at the trend over the last 5 to 6 years, that has been dropping. And over the last 3 years, we're down in the 0.2s and 0.3% increases. And you can just see the difference in the amount of money that generates, just from assessed value growth, where we were seeing $900,000, $1 million in increased tax revenue without a tax increase from assessed value growth. We're now looking at $247,000, $342,000, $284,000. So there's a big difference between what we've had, our experiences were, and what they are in the last 3 years. So that really hampers our ability to increase the budget, without tax increases. So, okay. So assessed value growth, if you look at it in a chart format, the blue graph, the blue bar lines are the assessed value growth. And yes, it has went up, and it continues to go up. But then if you look at the growth percentage, you can see how that went up. It was very high in 16, 17, peaked again in 2021, but then has been dropping and is down, between 2 and 3% growth each year over the last 3 years. The next source of revenue at the local level, the two major sources are real estate tax, and the second major source, or number 2, is earned income tax revenue. So taking a look at earned income tax revenue after, over the last number of years, again, 2021, 21, 22, we had tremendous growth in EIT revenue. Almost $2 million and $1.5 million, 11% and 8%. And then even in 22, 23, $800,000, and then $900,000 in 23, 24. That just dropped off for us last year in 24, 25. We had, budgeted a $900,000 increase or so, and, we got $397,000. So we were very short in our budget for 24, 25 for EIT. And you can see that percentage just dropped off, from 4s to 1.8. The increase completely, was more than cut in half. So we look back at why is this happening? So EIT is based off of the earned income of the people who live in Penn Ridge. So we didn't really have a mass exodus. The only thing that I can, equate this to is a slowing of salary and wage growth within the people that live in the district, and or people who have worked at home for the last number of years and have now went back to jobs within the city of Philadelphia. Because for the folks that work inside the city of Philadelphia have to pay the wage tax to city of Philadelphia, and we don't get that. So if people are migrating back to the office in the city, we will lose earned income tax revenue. Okay. looked at EIT in a graph form. Again, you can see 2021 where it peaked. And again, 2021 was in the middle of COVID. Wages were going up and people were working from home. So I think it's a, double-edged sword where people are going back to Philly and, wages just aren't increasing the way they were. So looking at the state funding.
Mr. Dover, if I
Yes, sir.
may interrupt you though, so I think also you see the more hybrid work. So if someone is working a couple days while they're home and then the 2 days they're traveling to Philadelphia, Philadelphia would get the tax for those couple days, or if they're employed by the federal government. So I think that's worth noting that you see people, we're splitting the revenue, so to speak.
Yes, sir. Yep. Fair point. State funding history. We have 3 major line items from the state that are not based on reimbursements of expenditures that we make. They would be the basic education, the special education, and the ready to learn. And now the adequacy, which was added in 24-25. The other line items that we get from the state would be transportation reimbursement, which is based on a formula and based on our transportation costs. Social Security reimbursement, which is based on wages and a reimbursement from the state share of Social Security costs that the district has. And the same for retirement. The state share of retirement they send to the district. They're all booked as revenues, but they're all based off of expenditures that the district are making. These 3 line items, now 4 line items, are the state's funding of the education process within the district. These are line items that are broken out. They are formula generated, but they are variable from year to year based on the state budget. And they can change at any time with the simple passage of a law, by the legislature and signed by the governor. It can completely change the process, can completely change the formulas, it can completely change what we're going to see. But these are our major revenue line items. Basic education funding, 25-26. We expected 13.6 million. Special education funding, 4.3 million. Ready to learn, 625,000, and adequacy funding, 179,000. So adequacy funding is new, started in 24-25. It is part of the state's reaction to losing the Supreme Court case, which said that the state was not fairly funding school districts within the state of Pennsylvania. There was a line item added to the formula called adequacy. We at Penridge, we qualify for a very small amount, less than $90,000 of adequacy funding. There are districts out there that their adequacy funding is multiple millions of dollars. And it's basically, it's a formula, and our formula, where we landed within the comparison to all the other districts within the state, we came out with $89,000. So for 25-26, the governor proposed his budget, and we included those numbers in our budget when we passed it in June. And those were the numbers that he proposed. So taking a look at these line items a little bit more in depth, you can see that here again, revenue line items that in the early 2020s were being funded pretty aggressively, especially 22, 23, and 23, 24. Basic ed funding was in the 6% range for Penridge for increases. The last 2 years, that's dropped off significantly, 2.65% and 0.94% in the current year, which again isn't settled yet because there's not a state budget. Looking at that, you can just see the percentage increase just going up and down. And it's really at the whim of governor and legislature, what's happening and how we're getting funded from a year-to-year basis. It makes it extremely difficult to plan. Special education funding, much smaller funding level than the basic ed funding. But again, you can see it going up and down. And again, 22, 23, 23, 24, state was funding education, at least Penridge, very well. 24, 25, 25, 26, a complete drop off. But again, in 24, 25 was the first year that the state made the effort, based on the Supreme Court case that was settled, to fund districts in a more fair way, whatever fair means. And it meant pumping whatever money was coming from the state to the less wealthy districts, the districts that throughout the court case, they found that were not funded adequately over a number of years. So what that pushing all that money to those districts has really hurt districts like Penridge, who aren't as bad off financially as those other districts, but certainly are impacted by all the state money that was coming to Penridge, now going to other districts. So you saw it both in the basic ed number and in the special ed number for the last 2 years, just completely dropping off. So when you drop that and you drop our two local revenue numbers that generate the increase in the local side, it's a recipe for, a big drop in revenue. Because you're getting hit from the local side and the state side. So again, the special ed, up and down. So this is the state budget, 25-26. The governor proposed his budget way back in early February. We were to receive in his budget 127 more in basic ed funding, 11,000 more in special ed, 89,000 in adequacy, and ready to learn additional 89,000. So the increase was to be 434,000. Last week, the House passed SB 160 and sent it over to the Senate. The numbers in that particular bill for Penridge, in the end, it's $82,500 less than what the governor proposed in his budget. So we're already seeing in the House version a reduction in our funding for 25-26 than what the governor said and what we had planned for. The scary part is that the Senate hasn't even considered this and is basically saying they won't consider this. This is a non-starter for them. They're going to lower it even further. The Senate is at the last Senate budget they put out that I know of was basically saying they want to flat fund it. They want it to be flat funded with no increases. So where we end up, nobody knows, but it's not going to be SB 160, and it's not going to be the governor's numbers. We're going to end up somewhere less than those numbers. And the Senate's not even scheduled to come back till October 20th. So there does not seem to be any urgency in Harrisburg to fix this issue and pass a state budget and fund school districts and the other parts of local government that aren't being funded right now. So those are the revenue sides. And the other big things when we start to look at on the expenditure side, when we start to talk about budget, is salaries. So this is a look at the last contract settlement for PEA, which is in blue, and PESPA, which is in red or orange, and what the impacts are on those for the 26-27 year. And you can see the impacts from 25, 26, 24, 25 was the year that these contracts were settled with much higher amounts in them than what had normally been, settled here in Penridge. We are looking at about $1.8 million just in PEA and PESPA salary. And you can compare that to, the 3.2 million that the Act One index generates. And we know that on top of those salary numbers, we have an increase coming in healthcare. We would like to put the money back in for the school buses that we took out of last year's budget. So just looking at it, just 60,000 foot view, you can see the numbers adding up pretty quick on us. So, but again, those are the gross numbers. We're going to go through a process of retirements, making decisions about what positions are replaced, what positions aren't replaced, what's needed, what's not needed. Going through what Angelo has been talking about for 2 years is right-sizing this district as far as staffing. That is an ongoing process that we look at it on a daily basis. So just know these things are out there as we start talking about the budget, but there's a lot of moving pieces and there's a lot of stuff we're going to do between now and June, to work through a budget process together. So tonight, this is just one little piece, just to show you where numbers are going and what trends are and so forth, just to, kind of prime the pump and give you a little bit of information. And this is just the cumulative increases in those salaries and those contracts. So that's all I have for this part of the Act One.
Any questions on that? It's a lot of information, not much of it good. But I think we're committed to not exceeding the Act One index.
Yes.
And that's what the next section is about?
Yep, that's the next
Make sure
section. So the Act One index, so the Act One index timeline that we look at each year. There's really two timelines. There's the timeline if the district would want to seek exceptions, which is not what we've done in the past. We have always worked through the process that we're not going to exceed the Act One index, and we go through the budget process where we begin in November with our information for budgeting sent out to our principals and department heads. In January, those folks have January 5th is when their deadline is to get their budgets into our budgeting software. And then we start, and we talked about this before, where we sit down with each principal and budget head, superintendent, myself, Dan, and we go through budgets line item by line item. And then we go through the personnel budgeting process with HR. We build that budget. And February 1st is when we know what our retirements will be, and we work those into the budget. And then we start a process together through basically January, February, March, April, May, looking at budget information, budget forecasts, budget education talks and presentations, looking at the numbers, and go through on a monthly basis, making changes and so forth. May 11th is when our first scheduled budget adoption would be. That budget then lays in for 30 days. Has to be available for public inspection and so forth. Has to be advertised, and then the second budget adoption is June 15th. So that is our normal schedule. That is the schedule with the opt-out resolution put in place, and it allows us the ability to really be able to work through the budget process. To not take the opt-out resolution and go through the Act One budget process, we would have to have a budget adopted by you in January of 2026, which is really not realistic in my mind to have
Not a
a
quality budget.
good quality product for you to look at.
So we have to vote on this meeting?
Yeah, I have the opt-out, Act One opt-out resolution available for you. It's in your board docs. It can be adopted anywhere up to the January board meeting. We have done it basically in October just to get it over with. I think it's a good commitment to make to the community, that we are, we're committed to work within those numbers. And the state has given us to live within.
No objection. October then.
Okay.
I think the budget process has to be a little different this year than we have in the past, because we're obviously needing to lower our costs, and we haven't always been successful at that, so maybe we need to look at it a little differently this year, because we need to achieve a lot of savings because we're losing a lot of revenue. And so we probably continue this discussion later.
Yep. That's all I have.
Oh, that's, oh, that was 2 of them, isn't it? All right, no public comment? Anything else?
Sorry. So I know that we had talked about some of the stuff with the funding. I don't know, do we know where we're at as far as what we've lost so far from the state? Or what we should have gotten from the state with the impasse?
You mean sort of lost interest?
Yeah, or
Lost
just
revenue?
in the money that we should have gotten dispersed. I mean,
Yeah, Angela actually puts that in his via the board information each week, or every other week the last 2 we put that in there through the end of October. I believe we'll be up around 7 or 8 million short. Yeah. Do you remember the number, Dan? We north of that. I know we pulled all the numbers together.
We usually get 4% interest.
Yeah.
The money in the That's a sizable number. It keeps getting bigger.
Yeah, it's all lost revenue. And I think it behooves us to try to contact whoever we can contact with the state level and say, get this figured out. You guys got a job to do. We're doing our job here. Get your act together, pass the budget. And over the weekend, the news for the DOE with the firings at that level. I'm curious how that's going to affect us as far as IDEA disbursements and that's a big chunk of money that's coming to the state. I think it was.
Mr. Kaufman, through the end of October, the total number will be $9,844,000 less in state funding than we received during the same time frame last year.
So
9.8.
we lost 4% interest on that.
We'll keep updating that
Right.
Yeah.
each time that we have a.
Yes, I mean, ultimately, it's borne by the taxpayers, because
Absolutely.
it's gotta come from the taxes at some point if we keep getting shorted, so it just makes our life even more difficult here. If they could pass the budget, we would have a lot more extra revenue we could use for the school. It's a shame. All right, that's
I
it.
think it's important to show that, some years it's a lot easier to budget. When you're getting 6, 7, 8, 9% increases, it's a lot easier to budget then. So those years were much easier
Yeah.
for everyone.
I always talk about the over 50 community, which added a lot of revenue but no children. So we don't have that going on right now, but you can see it in the numbers, and it's a shame because we could use more growth. All right, anything else? All right, the next Finance Committee meeting is scheduled for November 10th, 2025. Meeting is adjourned.